Welcome back to Pack Mentality. I'm Matt Banwart. My wife Caitlin and I own Red Wolf CrossFit in Huntington Beach, California. And we started this podcast with one goal in mind, and that was to make fitness education accessible, engaging, and effective for everyone. Today we have Coach Chrysta Osborne on the podcast. Welcome to the show. So good to have you.
Thank you for inviting me to be here.
Yeah, it's so good to have you. So Chrysta is our nutrition coach, and she's also our CrossFit Kids coach. And we're also currently onboarding her to start taking on some of our main coaching here at Red Wolf. Very excited to have you. Today we're going to be talking about Chrysta's fitness journey, her own personal journey. We're going to talk about also some of the results she's gotten from working with everyone at Red Wolf with her nutrition coaching. And if we have time, we'll definitely chat about the kids program and what to kind of look forward with there. But yeah, let's just start with your story, Chrysta. You want to start there? So yeah. Tell us, what kind of initially got you into fitness in the first place?
Sure. So being 6'2", a lot of people had mentioned, hey, do you play basketball throughout my entire life? So obviously sports was something I was shifted into. I did martial arts as a kid, but, getting into middle school, people are like, you're really tall, you'd be good at volleyball, basketball. So that was my intro to sports. Go through college. I played basketball in college. After college, nothing. So, looking for that team atmosphere again, I ended up going to the CrossFit Games. Actually, I happened to be sitting outside the CrossFit Games. I lived in Madison, Wisconsin, 2018 when the games came to town, and was sitting outside, and one of the vendors had extra tickets and said, hey, do you want to go in and check out the games? And so I was like, heck yeah. We were sitting out there because eye candy. You see all these fit, nice people come into town. It's what you do, right? Right. So decided, let's go inside, check this out. I had been dating a guy at the time that had been a fitness trainer, and I was like, oh, this is the lifestyle. And he was not a CrossFit trainer, but I got to see the experience of what CrossFit did. Mainly the bodies for me was the aesthetic appeal of you do this sport, you get that body. And I was like, literally sign me up. That Sunday night, right after, as the games were still in town, I emailed 3 CrossFit gyms. The first one that got back to me was the one that won because they're like, hey, come tomorrow, come to class. We have 6 other people doing our ramp up tomorrow. And so I ended up going that following day and just kept progressing, kept learning about my body, how it moved. I found that team atmosphere again that I had lost in, the sports from high school and college. Because, we have that community of everybody working towards a goal, but it's your own fitness goal. So it's your body personally. But you look over and you're like, oh man, that person's still doing burpees where I'm here and taking like 60 breaths to survive. You're like, that person pushes me to go faster, to go harder. And so having, people like to work out in the gym by themselves, but when you have that community, you're inspired to push yourself harder. You have the coach to pushing you harder versus, going to a 24-hour by yourself. You're just doing 10 of these and 10 of these for 4 sets. So having, somebody who's done the programming for you, you just show up to the gym. Literally, to me, that was the awesomest thing. I just have to get myself there and the coach takes care of everything for me. So my journey for CrossFit was seeing that. And then the guy that I dated was like, you should become a coach too. And, sometimes people plant those seeds that you're like, I don't ever see myself doing that. And that seed just grew and grew and grew. And doing nutrition coaching, I was like, this is kind of hand in hand because, might as well be able to help people on both sides of the coin. Obviously, they're going to get to their fitness goals faster if they work out, right? I've worked with people who just change their eating habits and it goes a lot slower. So I decided to drink the Kool-Aid and do the L1 class and absolutely loved it. The trainer we had was on fire. You could tell CrossFit is very passionate about educating their coaches to be the best. And what I learned specifically from a nutrition perspective is the 3 metabolic pathways that CrossFit really gears towards. And it's like, wow, those 3 metabolic pathways, CrossFit hits that. If you show up to class, a couple classes a week, you're going to hit all that. Your weight loss and fat, fluctuate, changes, and will go down if you're hitting all those metabolic pathways within the week, versus going to 24-hour, doing a stair stepper at, my heart rate's 135 and 10 of these and 10 of those. Somebody, when they program for you, is pushing you harder than you could do yourself, right? So that's why I absolutely fell in love with CrossFit, number one, as the methodology and what they teach and track and help you grow, but also, to be able to inspire others to seeing themselves get bigger and better and not just drop weight, to see themselves, be able to lift and carry and, survive through adult years and into grandparent years. That's majority of the clients I work with. They say they want to be able to crawl on the floor with their kids, and getting into CrossFit is going to help them with that. Number one. Number two, eating the right foods that will allow you to be physically fit to be able to crawl on the floor is also important. So, so what I help people with is long-term seeing, fitness is important for life, and eating the right foods is going to be important for life to keeping your body optimal, and that machine that you're looking for it to be.
Yeah. Awesome. Fantastic. Kind of going back to what you were, going back to your background as a basketball player, what did your training kind of look like then when you were in college, and what college did you go to?
Sure. So I went to college in Pennsylvania. It was called Dickinson College.
Okay.
And so our training was, I was also in ROTC, Army ROTC at the time.
Oh, dang. I didn't know that.
And I lost a ton of weight. Like my family was like, wow, you used to have like these plump cheeks. And I just went like completely flat, apparently. So with, we'll go with basketball first. So basketball, we were, doing runs like in the off season before we actually got into the season. They make you do off season stuff. So we would run about 1.5 miles and it was timed. Same with ROTC. We had to do a 2 mile run in a certain amount of time. So running was a big thing. Back to basketball, lifting, we did bench press, we did calf raises. I promise you, we didn't do any squats. This is so weird for me to share. We didn't do any squats, mainly bench, calf raises, and tons of suicides. We weren't in the weight room hardly at all. But in the off season, all I recall is bench pressing and calf raises.
Wow.
Honestly.
That's it?
That was it. Yeah. Interesting, right?
That is interesting.
2004 to 2008.
So it's just bench press and calf raises.
Yep.
Nothing else. Really? Well, how long were you actually in the weight room then?
So we would be in there for probably about a half hour.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
How many days a week?
Coach made us do 3 times a week, but she had a program too where we would have to increase weight every rep, like every set. After every set, you do your 10 reps, you had to add at least 2.5 or 5 pounds, and then do every single time.
Interesting.
So there was a build, but it was just
it was just the same thing, repetitive over and over again. Very interesting.
So no squat. No squats.
Nothing
no
for the hamstrings.
deadlifting. Yeah.
Interesting. So very, very one-dimensional then for the training. Yep. Okay. Let's talk a bit about the ROTC background. So what was the main reason that made you want to do that in the first place?
Free college.
Free college.
My dad had this theory that every man needed to go into the military. And so I was a daughter of his, and I'm like, might as well give it a shot too. Free college. I joined Army ROTC, ended up not continuing the whole way through college because, again, this is 2004. I was like, no. My brother was sent to Cuba. All of his friends were sent to Afghanistan. And I was like, not for me. So, I did a full semester, got to do, the training out in the fields and a lot of running. Lots of air squats, running in cadence, so it did teach me a lot of discipline. And then also what I use for nutrition coaching clients is, think of the Army. They get up and they work out first thing in the morning. Why? Because that is the best way to get that metabolic fire moving first thing in the morning. Now, I know a lot of people who are listening, I got to work first thing in the morning. You can still get up and move. You don't have to do your full CrossFit workout. You can save that for later. But get up, move, get up, stretch, get outside, breathe that oxygen. Some of those same discipline skills that we did, carry through with me now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Awesome.
ROTC was fun. Good
Fantastic.
experience.
Okay. Fantastic. What would you say is the biggest lesson that you took away from the ROTC experience?
That's a great question. I would just honestly say working with a team, obviously being as part of a unit, everybody has their own units together and their own, you make a collective branch. But if you're not following where you're at, somebody else sees the whole picture. You may just see this vision of the picture. But following direction, number one, was something that is essential to being in the military of any sort, and doing without questioning. Same with coaching. Like, you don't question the coach. Why am I doing 10 bench pressing? You just do it, right? Yeah. So following direction is just that pattern that you learn.
Awesome, fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. What would you say? Oh, sorry. Before I get into that question, what did you end up graduating with? With what degree?
My major was Bachelor of Science in Nutrition and Dietetics.
Okay, perfect.
And then, so that was in Pennsylvania. I ended up moving. I was going to go to Madison to do my internship for nutrition and dietetics.
Okay.
And ended up not getting accepted at UW. It's very selective. They only pick 6 people in the U.S. And so I ended up just going to get a job. And honestly, I'd much rather work with people who want to work with me than being in a hospital or clinic setting where I have to work with people who have to work with me.
Oh, okay.
The people who are pre-diabetic, the people who are diabetic, the people who need to lose 200-300 pounds, who just had, gastric bypass surgery.
Right.
So, I much prefer working with the clientele that I have now, who also are doing CrossFit and fitness of all sorts. So that way I can see, the better results long term.
Fantastic. So kind of piggybacking off of that, where was there anything in particular that made you really passionate about nutrition coaching in the first place?
Actually, yeah. So my mom had passed away when I was 12.
Oh, man.
My father, it was a pretty traumatic experience, but my father ended up, one of the men in our church had colon cancer. He went with him right after my mom passed away, like literally weeks right after she passed away, down to Tijuana to help learn and help this man do habit change and lifestyle cleansing through methodologies that they did in Tijuana. So my dad came back a changed man. Like, they did, enemas for this individual. He had colon cancer, and so he was actually a pro baseball player in our area. And so my dad, was connected with him, and he was asked to go with him. And so they did a holistic, radical change to try to eradicate cancer from this man from a nutrition perspective. So, all sorts of supplements, all sorts of soaks, and different things that they taught while my dad was there to help save this man's life. So my dad came back a complete changed man after my mom passed away. Growing up as a kid, we ate, canned vegetables with Velveeta cheese.
Oh, man.
So, I mean, my background, I was not the perfect person, but my dad totally came back a changed man. We ate nothing. I swear to you, Matt, it was chicken stir fry forever. And then oatmeal cookies is the only thing that he would make. My mom used to make cakes and brownies and all sorts of fun stuff. He would only do oatmeal cookies. And my brother was on this weight loss kick, right around that time as well, because my oldest brother still lived here in California. So Coleman was able to get a trip to California if he lost 40 pounds.
Oh, interesting.
So that helped motivate my dad to cook healthy, plus everything he learned about eradicating cancer and wanting to keep us healthy from his experience in Tijuana. And so, we had chicken stir fry every night for, probably that whole year. And then every cookie was a mile. My dad would say every time going out a cookie, that's a mile on a treadmill. And he ended up reaching his goals.
Wow.
But all of those habits are ingrained into me, of eating healthier, I personally, you know, I was at that time 16. I decided to dive into it more. You know, we'd go to a bookstore, I'd get a nutrition book on the encyclopedia of fruits and vegetables, and then, you know, read that to my dad while driving about all the things that I'm learning about fruits and vegetables. And I wanted to learn always, like, when I consume something, what is the healthiest option? So, like, you know, you have 18 different kind of potatoes out there, right? What is the number one potato that has the least amount of starch, the most amount of vitamins, the least amount of carbohydrates and calories that's going to give me that satisfaction of a potato? So, you know, taking the time to do all that research is something that I really, really loved and enjoyed doing. And then, so, you know, when we went to career day, it was all these tables of what you can do. I picked up the dietitian packet and I was like, this is what I want to do. It's like, that pay is meh, but this is what I want to do. You know, I want to help people eradicate cancer, to, you know, maintaining a healthy body, to not have to depend on somebody to wheel them in a wheelchair if they can prevent that. You know, 100%. and to be an independent person as long as they can, to not worry about chronic disease like diabetes or heart disease. And everybody has that opportunity to make that path this way or that way. Right? They can go down the path of chronic disease, or they can choose to go down the path of taking care of my body, fueling it properly, and then see that end result.
That's awesome. So that's such a great story. And it's really cool to see that you're so passionate about it, because nutrition is something that's very difficult for a lot of people, not only to do on their own, but I mean, even to coach it is very difficult. And, you know, it's so much, in my opinion, it's a lot harder to coach nutrition than it is actually coaching people at the gym, because, you know, the gym is like, you know, you can show up and you can just follow along and you can, you know, see some progress there. But with nutrition, you know, there's only so much you can do as a coach, because the rest of it's on your own.
6 days without your coach.
Exactly. And even if you do, I mean, because like when you're there for that hour, I have full control over that hour of your training. So, I mean, I can help you with your reps, your sets, your weight. And then once you leave, it's like, okay, as long as you keep showing up, then that's all you need to do. Whereas nutrition, it's like, you know, you consult with someone, you get some really good advice, you get all the tools you need. But I mean, there's only so much a nutrition coach can do, because ultimately it's up to the individual to execute.
Right.
So that's very difficult.
Thought about living in with people for a week, and, you know, this is how we can change your habits. I'm going to watch every single thing you eat.
Yes.
I'm going to be with you every moment of the day. That's not logical.
Yeah, it's
right?
not. It can't happen.
That's exactly what you're pointing out. Yep.
I can't wait to dig into that a little bit more, but I still want to talk a little bit more about you. So so when you graduated with your degree and everything, and you want to get in like that dietitian nutrition coaching and become a nutritionist, did you go straight into that, or did you do other things kind of leading up to that?
I did other things leading up to that. I did kind of dabble in management, you know, people management, and HR, and restaurant management, you know, were kind of different paths I went. But I also had that nutrition coaching as my side business. So I got to, you know, learn a lot about people. And so fast forward to a workshop that I went to. Had a girlfriend who put on a workshop about sugar, like how to, you know, to stop the sugar habit workshop. I ended up going to that, and she had become a health coach. And so I had a conversation with her. We went through a 21-day cleanse together. And so what I learned from her, because my goal is to be a lifelong learner, right? I don't know everything there is about nutrition. Nobody can know everything about nutrition. You know, being open-minded to other coaches, to other methodologies, other ideas, you know, just makes me as a coach more well-rounded. So I did do her 21-day cleanse. And what I learned about her coaching program was that the program that she did was not necessarily about like the what foods to eat. It was the habit change. So that was this coaching program that I decided, I was like, I'm going to do this too. So besides my nutrition degree, I was like, I want to do this health coaching program. So it was a Health Coach Institute that I did do the full class with them. Was also a life coach as well. So you got to be a nutrition or a health coach and certified life coach as well through the program. And I learned a ton about habit change. So most people know what to eat, Matt. right? They all know chicken, broccoli, and sweet potatoes.
I know.
For the rest of my life, just like a dog eats the same thing. You could do that, but it's all about the habits that we have. You know, me, for example, I meal prep. I'll have all sorts of items in the fridge. I'll open it, and I just don't feel like that. But when you align to people's goals, their motivating factor as to why they meal prepped, why they chose those foods, to be able to crawl on the floor with their kids when they're old, you know, to be able to hike at 65 up a certain mountain that they've always wanted to see the look over, you know, that will remind them as to, this is why I'm eating tuna salad today, right? So when you align the whys and the anchor to the goals, it helps them follow through. So that's my coaching program when I work with people. Yes, I know the what to eat, but we also work on the who you're being while you're eating. Are you completely stressed out? Because if you're chronically stressed, you have cortisol pumping through you, and your insulin cannot do its job properly. So we work on that. You know, more than just the different habits, we work on the clutter in your home. You know, are there different foods in your house or sabotaging people that help you go away from your goal? You know, do your buddies ask you to go out drinking every weekend? You know, that 12 pack is 1,200 calories added onto you that doesn't help you reach your goals. So, you know, when I work with clients, it's very individualized. It can't be a cookie cutter of, you know, I've for instance, at Red Wolf, you know, we have the complete opposite extremes. We have somebody who has had a desk job, who has about 2,000 steps a day, and who's eaten predominantly drive-through for the past 2 years. And then we have somebody who has been, you know, a swimming coach who is very physically fit, that does track her calories and her macros. And, you know, so the angle that I work with people are completely separate. So that's why the one-on-one coaching is best, because we dig into their habits, right? We dig into their habits of what they do on a day-to-day basis and where we need to make those changes, because you can't bring in a new couch without taking out the old furniture, right? So figuring out, and they help me dictate where do you think sabotage lies, right? What are you willing to change? What are you willing to give up? And so when you work one-on-one with a coach like that, you're able to be confronted, right? You're confronted with your BS that you've been feeding yourself for so long. And we're able to move forward, because it's not always about the what you need to eat. It's the why, the how, the who you're being when you're eating. So we explore all those different angles, and more than just me giving you a eat chicken, broccoli, and sweet potato forever.
Exactly. It's a lot better than just being handed a meal plan, handed macros, and it really makes you dig into the emotional reasons behind eating. Because you're absolutely right. It's not a knowledge problem. It's an execution problem. It's you know, we all know what eating healthy is at its core, but to actually follow through and actually doing that is a whole nother set of habits that usually have some sort of underlying emotion attached to that. Or am I incorrect?
No. And there's a lot of trauma. I'll give you a prime example of myself. Okay. So I told you my mom passed away when I was 12. My dad ended up getting a brain tumor when I was 30.
God.
So he had passed away. That was like a double whammy of mom and dad at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. Knowing my background, I reverted to eating Velveeta shells and cheese, Dr. Pepper, and Doritos, because that's literally all my emotion could allow me to do. So a lot of people know the right things to do, but there are habits or there's past traumas. I've worked with a lot of clients who've lost parents. And so we get to kind of explore the paralysis that you get of, I have to get up and cook for myself.
Yeah.
Well, I'm emotional because I'm, you know, dwelling on this past person who's no longer here, and I'm stuck in that trauma. And so that's the fun that I get to do with my job is to watch people truly transform, more than just eating habits,
right?
More than just stopping going to the drive-through, more than just tracking on MyFitnessPal. It's watching their life story transform, and for the better, the healthier. You know, to hear them even clients that I had way back when I lived in Wisconsin still check in with me. Chrysta, I got a PR on this, or I'm running a marathon now.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's fun because I build friendships. That's my goal, is to help them navigate through life and see that big picture in the future of why these healthy foods, why these healthy habits are so important for you forever. Because we're not going to stop it after 6 weeks.
Yes.
We want you to do this forever. You know, there are people who do bone broth diets. Yeah, you'll lose 30 pounds in 6 weeks. But that's not, you know, a lifestyle to maintain.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I always tell people this too. If you can't do it for a decade, don't even bother doing it for a day. Because it's not, I mean, you're just going to revert back to those old habits anyways. And then I see this all the time too with people who train, who do like, you know, 6-week challenges at like a gym, and then they expect, you know, like, oh, I'm just going to do it hard for 6 weeks and then that's it. And it's like, unfortunately, you know, it's like trying to pursue having a meal so good that you never need to eat again. And we know that's not true, right? It's something that you have to, no, it's about still having good meals moving forward. You know, it's the end game isn't getting in shape, it's staying in shape. The end game isn't to have a great relationship with your spouse or your loved ones, it's to maintain that relationship. So in other words, there's always some sort of work that's got to be put in that is reoccurring over time, and fitness and nutrition is exactly the same.
And we have a whole session dedicated onto finding pleasure and tapping into mentally rehearsing in your brain, finding pleasure in working out and meal prepping. So literally, like, we do a whole meditative session on visualization. You know, you manifest what you visualize, right? And finding joy and pleasure in those mundane tasks.
Right.
So, like, for instance, I don't like cold tomatoes. I'll eat spaghetti sauce all day, but I hate cold tomatoes. I tell myself, I love tomatoes. Pop one in, I'm just fine.
Yeah.
So you really can trick the brain into following through if you mentally will it to.
Yeah, it's so funny how much that the brain actually controls so much. I mean, everything from mindset to habits. And a lot of times, 9 out of 10 times, even when I'm just coaching someone in fitness, it's not that they have any kind of physical handicap that's actually holding them back. It's usually just their mindset and their habits. So it's crazy how much that coaching aspect matters so much in terms of getting people results. Great. Can you kind of tell me about, like, what is one of the most difficult habits that you've had to break with someone for a client? Or in other words, what's like some common things that you see that is actually that you kind of see across all clientele that you've worked with that is difficult to break, but once they break through that barrier, that things start to get really easy for them?
Sure. So I would say on average, I would say probably the number one is people waking up and immediately going to coffee.
Oh,
Like
okay.
that.
Interesting. I would have guessed that.
Yeah. Because a lot of people are willing to give up the desserts. Like that in the first week, they're like, no, this is my goal. They're
Really?
fine.
People
Yep,
are willing to give
they
up
are.
desserts. Interesting. But the coffee first thing in the morning, I would never have guessed that. All right.
And
Let's talk about that.
so, you know, realizing that immediately putting your body into a fight or flight mode first thing in the morning is really sabotaging you.
Yeah.
Because you no longer have an appetite. You have caffeine, right? So you've put your body in fight or flight. So your blood reroutes away from your stomach to your extremities for quick movement, quick thinking. You're in fight or flight, right? So that's what your body's designed to do. So your stomach no longer has an appetite. So you're going, you know, whatever time you wake up, you're going on coffee for 2-3 hours before you're hungry. Most people are at work at that time. What do? There's donuts or muffins in the break room.
Or soda.
Right. Yeah. Or the vending machine,
Or
you
more
know.
coffee.
Yeah. Or hitting up, you know, Starbucks on the drive-in. More coffee on
More coffee on top of the coffee.
And so recognizing that immediately, instead of dehydrating myself, that I need to hydrate myself. Like I just went 7 to 9 hours with no food or water, that I need to immediately hydrate myself will get me feeling better. So I think that's probably the first habit and the hardest habit to get people to break, where they're going to see the best results.
Okay.
Because if you get your metabolic fire moving instead of suppressing it longer and longer, you're able to burn more when you get that metabolic fire moving right away. I had one client, she immediately first thing in the morning had coffee. She wouldn't eat till about 10:30 or 11. And I said, trust me, do the water, do your electrolyte cocktail that I've mentioned before. And then do some sort of breakfast, whether it's a banana, whether it's a piece of fruit, whether it's a piece, like something, just get something in your system before you do the coffee. And she's like, Chrysta, I've lost weight and I'm eating more. This is crazy.
Is crazy. I know.
So
So funny how that works.
If you just trusted the process and realize that nutrition honestly is a religion, you believe without seeing results.
Yes.
And you just trust the process. You trust the path. You will see results. If you continue and you put forth your effort and you choose to not sabotage, you will see the results at X amount of time.
Interesting. Interesting. How much does caffeine affect cortisol levels, especially that early in the morning, like upon waking?
So if you're immediately just putting that so imagine somebody who's just doing straight espresso or black coffee. There's no fat, there's no added sugar. Like that's just extra caffeine put into you right away. Yes, people use the MCT oils and different things to help that caffeine be a slower release. So it kind of depends on what they're drinking. You know what I mean? If you're doing a shot of if you're doing an Americano the first thing in the morning, or the red eye, that's the one that's the espresso and coffee first thing in the morning. Wow, you're probably not going to be hungry until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon because your body is just running on being jacked up on caffeine. So it kind of depends, obviously, on what they're choosing to drink first thing in the morning. But yeah, you are you're suppressing your appetite even more. Whereas first thing in the morning, you should be able to eat something and get your metabolic fire started again.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about that, about eating and the metabolic fire. Let's chat about that more. Can you kind of go into more detail and explain how actually eating more and eating right away instead of having coffee, kind of the science behind that and how that can actually help someone drop body fat percentage?
Sure. So I like to use the bonfire example. So think of, you had a bonfire overnight, right? You had your dinner, you went to bed, your bonfires went out. You have the coals still there, right? If you stayed camping anywhere, the following morning, you can stoke the coals and put some kindling on, and then you start adding logs. So think of your metabolic fire the same way. Overnight, it is, no longer, it's no longer doing its job of digesting food. It's actually gone to detoxing. Overnight, a lot of people are like, why do I sweat? Your body detoxes at night. You're meant to sweat. You're not meant to get these cold sheets and sprays to make you not sweat. Your body is fighting off all these things that you've counteracted throughout the day.
Right.
So, your metabolic fire has, you've tapped into fat overnight and you're able to survive, right? The 7 hours without food. In the morning, you want to add that kindling. You want to stoke that fire and add that kindling.
Okay.
So some sort of, usually a light carbohydrate. Carbohydrates in the form of a sugar, a fructose, is going to hit your system first and fast. Okay. So generally when I work with clients, some sort of fruit first thing in the morning is going to give you that energy right away. Then that's where you can start adding your fats and protein, depending on when your workout is too. Because obviously 5 a.m.ers don't want to have a full breakfast before they go to burpee box jump overs, 100%. And handstand walks. So knowing also what your activity first thing in the morning, you want to start with some sort of, ideally like a carb fructose type of substance, and then slowly start adding, depending on your workout, then add your protein and fats to get that metabolic fire throughout the day. And so thinking of your metabolism as the sun. So as the sun is burning brightest in the sky in the middle of the day, that's when your metabolic fire is burning the hottest.
Okay, interesting.
So
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, your lunch should be, instead of our dinners being our biggest meal, your lunch should be your bigger meal.
Interesting.
Or you could have 2 lunches. You could have one at noon and then one at 2:30 when everybody's already dragging ass at that time of day and needs the coffee and the caffeine and the the sugar to make it to 5 o'clock and the drive home, you know, white knuckled to go meal prep. Thinking of being okay with snack at that time, you know, and adding your calories more towards the earlier side of the day, and then substituting that for your dinner. So, you know, not making your dinner that larger meal, but making your lunch and or snack at that time your bigger meal, because that's when your metabolism is burning the hottest. And also,
interesting.
Intermittent fasting is sort of that's kind of their theory is lumping all your calories in a certain amount of time. And obviously their fast is a little bit different, but their theory of having your food in a certain amount of time does have some theory behind it, because again, that's when your metabolism is burning hottest.
Oh, okay.
Because when the sun is highest in the sky.
That is a great way to think of that. And that's really helpful. That's something I didn't even know, is that at noon that you are burning the hot, and that makes perfect sense because like you're halfway through the day. So, I mean, you know, it takes time for, just like anything else, it takes time to kind of ramp up. And then once you hit it, you get hit in the middle of the day and then naturally, like, it's like, okay, it's not kind of like, you know, like that 2-3 o'clock, it's like, it's starting to, like, body's starting to go into wind down mode, right?
Because you had a salad, you know, most people are like, let's have a light lunch, a salad or a half a sandwich. That's not a lot. You know what I mean? You're thinking from 12 to 5, that's a 5-hour stint of no food. That's a really long time, you know, to wait without eating. So generally, you know, I think of every 2.5 hours, you know, of trying to have some sort of snack. And obviously you can be smart and think of your snack having all 3 of the same amount of macros will help you feel fullest the longest. By having that balance of carbs, protein, and fat will help you feel full the longest versus just having a piece of fruit at that time. That's going to go in and out of you really quick. Yeah, right?
100%. No, that's really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. We'll definitely have to talk about that. And we could probably do a whole podcast on just that subject. But let's kind of move on. Let's chat about what's like one of the most, and this can be kind of a general question and might be kind of difficult for you to really give a concrete answer. But what is like the number one thing that, or piece of advice you could give someone listening to this who is kind of, you know, going for like that body fat percentage reduction goal? What's like the number one piece of general advice that you would give them?
A track number grows. You know, if you don't track it, you're shooting at a target without a bullseye, right? So if you're making the effort to track, whether it's eyeball portion, you know, you don't have to necessarily go out and buy a scale, right? You can learn portion sizes with utensils, right? Your measuring cups or eyeball with your hand, and learning, you know, what your body should be eating in amount of calories in a day based on the amount of workout you're doing, you know, so it's a whole math related thing that obviously, you know, Caitlin or I are good at being able to calculate for somebody. But watching that number and then figuring out what your goals are and tweaking the number that you are to what you want to be. And then that's where you'll see the results of making effort into making that number change will make that number change.
Right.
So if you don't know how, obviously that's where a coach helps you in figuring out your macros, what foods give you the best energy, because I can't tell you that you survive best on the same foods that I eat that gives me energy. Everybody's different. So we go through a whole 4-day energy experiment where they manipulate their proteins and see how they survive, you know, track their energy levels based on what they eat. So if you're not paying attention to the energy that food gives you, then you're eating more, right? If you don't eat foods that give you high energy, you're just going to continue to eat more until you get that energy. But when you learn the right foods that give you the right fuel for the amount of time that you want it to, then you're going to choose to eat those more often and you're going to see those results better.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's talk a little bit about body composition and how not necessarily the weight on the scale is the best metric to track. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I actually have 2 current client examples of this.
Let's talk about that.
So when I work with clients during a 12-week process, we usually see about a 12 to 15 pound weight loss drop, if that's their goal. But being here at Red Wolf, we're doing 6 weeks. We're doing a 6-week ramp it up. So I have 2 clients that are at week 5 right now. And the cool thing is to watch since we have the InBody scale, to see their body composition change. So most clients are looking at the scale as like the ultimate, the mirror on the wall, make me feel good, right? So the scale sometimes is really not your best friend.
Right.
So for instance, we have one client, he's down in 5 weeks, half a pound, but he has had a 4.1 pound, a 7 pound change in his body. So for instance, his body fat mass is down 4.1 pounds from when he started 5 weeks ago. His skeletal muscle mass is up 3 pounds.
Wow.
His body fat is 2% less than when he started 5 weeks ago.
Wow. In just 5 weeks, you got those results.
5 weeks. But if he just looked at the scale, he'd say
he's making zero progress, but he's making a ton of progress.
Yes. And he is also one that needs to bulk up. So you notice, and I watch him, he's in the gym 4 or 5 days a week. He's accountable to telling me he's going to the gym 4 or 5 days a week. And I'm seeing the results, right? That you're seeing the muscle gain from those numbers. You're seeing that muscle gain, which muscle is very heavy, right? Muscle is a lot more dense and heavy compared to fat. So watching that, has been a joy for me, but also a wake-up call to people who don't have an InBody scale, who can't see the biometrics inside of them.
Yes.
Who can just see the pounds on the scale.
Exactly.
They get frustrated.
Yeah.
They say this is a load of, BS.
Yeah, I'm not
working.
I'm not losing weight. And, and sometimes, and I agree with you. And this is really important how we reframe it for people to actually show them that they're making progress. And this is why collecting data is so important. And Caitlin and I cover this in another podcast where, the more ways you the more ways you measure, the more ways you win. So if you only have one way of tracking your progress and it's one dimensional, that doesn't actually tell you the whole story, right? Because, muscle does weigh more than fat. So you can even gain weight and then lose fat, but gain muscle. And then I've had someone actually do that, and they were actually upset they weren't losing weight.
Like, the scale is heavier than when I started with you.
And it was funny. And then I had to talk them off the edge of the cliff and be like, hey, but you have to look at the actual data here. Like, let's not just get married to one thing, because honestly, no one knows your weight but you anyways. So who cares? And then so when we showed them, I'm like, you who was this client recently? I scanned them. They gained about 5 pounds of muscle, and then they lost about 2-3% body fat in about 6 weeks. I'm training with personal training, but the weight didn't really fluctuate too much. And they're like, well, I'm not losing weight. I'm like, well, you just gained 5 pounds of muscle and lost 3% body fat. So and I had to explain to them, that muscle weighs more, and and like, well, how are your clothes fitting? They're like, a lot better. They're like, is anybody noticing changes in like your face and your shoulders? And like, yes. I'm like, okay, well, those are huge wins. So you may be attached to this, but everybody else is noticing how much better you're looking, and you even get attached, and you even feel better in your clothes. And you had to buy new clothes, which is a good thing. And it's just so funny that they were still disappointed in themselves.
Sure.
Because
they wanted to see that scale number go down.
Exactly. Yeah. And then that's a good lesson for everyone listening, is like, don't get attached to one metric. Measure in different ways, and also, make sure you have a coach working with you to kind of bring you back down to baseline, so that way, or reality, that, you are doing extremely well, because, it's really easy to beat yourself up. It's really easy to look at just one thing and have your only perspective, when a coach can give you much better, or help you zoom out and have a better perspective of where you're actually at currently.
Yeah. And we have one other client as well. Same thing, she's down 4 pounds in the 5 weeks, but her skeletal muscle mass for a female went up 3.3 pounds.
Wow.
Her fat for a female went down 8.6 pounds. As a female, that's where you're like, hallelujah.
In less than 6 weeks.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And her body fat percent went down 5%.
Wow, 5%. And so awesome. 1% a week.
Yep.
That is fantastic. And that just goes to show the power of of focus coaching. And, we're not going to reveal names here because, just for their own privacy. But I remember signing them up and doing their consults with them and walking them through it and showing them where they were at. And the big difference between them being successful, and this is kind of a side quest I'm going off on here, was, and people who aren't successful in terms of fitness and seeing results, is the fact that they fully committed right away. I said, I presented them with the best option. They were like, great, let's do this. I'm all in. I really want this. And then they started right away, and they show up to their calls with you, and they follow through with the training protocols. They show up to the classes. They show up for their one-on-one training. And it's crazy how you can it's done with you. It's almost like we have the path laid out. As long as you just do what we tell you to do along the same way, you just work on these things and you show up to your sessions, that it's amazing what you can get in such a short amount of time.
Right. And it's the accountability that you have too. You have so many people in your amen corner. You have Coach Matt, Coach Caitlin, Coach Kim, me, the entire CrossFit community. Everybody in that gym wants you to reach your goals, right? They're all clapping, cheering for you every workout. They all show up because they need the energy of you to be in that workout. So you have more people wanting you to be successful than not wanting you to be successful. So most people I work with, that's why they can't do this by themselves.
Yeah.
They don't have accountability. They don't have the steps or the program of the right way to do it. And like you mentioned, if it's right here laid out for you, all you have to do is show up.
Yeah.
Show up and follow through with the commitment. And then, for those multiple days when they're not doing, calls with me, or they already had a workout with you, and that accountability time, what we work on is anchors. So in their sessions, we work on anchors, things in their environment that remind them to why they're doing their goals. So whether it's a bathing suit hanging on the refrigerator, whether it's an old picture of how they want to look on their cell phone, so it prevents them from scrolling and screen time, and it's like, get up and move.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that we set up anchors and mini coaches, I like to call these anchors mini coaches, out that are in your environment, that are in your own personal environment, in your car, sticky notes, that you need to put places that remind you to your goals. So you have all of the conditions for success set up at that point.
No, that's awesome. That is something that works extremely well, that I didn't even realize that I use, is I do have things or I'll have something written down on my fridge that just helps me narrow my focus and just reminds me to, stay the course, because it's really easy to get distracted. It's really easy to see bright, shiny object syndrome, either on Instagram or, what a friend is doing. But then when you have that singular focus and you have a daily reminder of what I'm working towards, and that it actually takes less time than people think. When you really break it down, like, people can get results very quickly, and it's just a matter of, having those anchors. And I like how you frame that, because, that's definitely something that worked for me that I didn't even think about, that I just kind of did automatically. And it's so funny how that can transfer to almost anything, not just, fitness, not just nutrition,
any
goal
that you
goal.
Want. Yeah, goal poster. Yep.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Yep.
All right, well, we won't have time to get to the CrossFit Kids stuff. We could definitely talk about that another time. But before we start wrapping things up, do you have any other piece of advice when it comes to nutrition, fitness, anything at all that you want to bring up?
Your goals are worth it, like what you are looking to achieve is worth, like I mentioned, eating the same foods that are going to bring you to that goal. To see your body being able to lift that PR or run or do that workout in the shorter amount of time than before, it's worth doing all of the habit change to see that transformation. And I mean, there's no one piece of advice I can give, is just you are worth your goals, honestly.
Okay.
And so if you have that coach in your amen corner helping you out, you just have two people helping you get to your goals versus just yourself.
No, that's awesome.
And we all suck at accountability to ourselves.
Yeah,
we do.
Or
we would all do this by ourselves.
I agree with you. Yeah. If knowledge was, if knowledge was the problem, or if, sorry, I can't even remember the quote, but it was a great quote that I can't even remember right now. No, I can't even think of it. Oh my gosh. Now I'm embarrassed. But it was a good one. It was something along the lines that we'd all be millionaires with abs if knowledge was the only thing that we needed. Something along those lines. I think that was it.
Yeah.
So I kind of butchered that. But no, that makes total sense. And yeah, I really love all the information that you provide with us today. I appreciate you bringing along some of the results that your clients have seen. Also, Chrysta does give a free nutrition consult. How long is the consult?
It's I'm a long talker, so it's usually 45 minutes to an hour. I would say we can get it done in 30 minutes, but depending on you, if you have more questions, you have things that you want to explore a little bit more, I'm open to up to an hour one-on-one consult, but we can, get it done in a half hour if you have things to do.
Okay, so, that's awesome. Yeah. So before we wrap things up, though, kind of walk us through what a free consult would look like with you.
Yeah. So I do send an intake form ahead of time, so I get to see what kind of an average day looks like. And then usually we go over what those results are, what you love about your life, what your habits are daily. And then from there, we work on your goal, what your goals are and what gets you to that goal. Like, for instance, when you get to 10 pounds less and you see, your visceral fat at 3 instead of 8, how will you see yourself? How will others see you? What will the head talk be at that point? What will the head talk, or what will the other people be saying about you? So we hit all the senses of why you want to get to your goal and your motivating factors. So we dig into that. And then from there, that's where we can make a path of how to get to that goal. So usually that's our first session is, what does your average day look like? What are your goals? What happens when you get to your goal? Like, how ecstatic will you be? So that way you can see what's worth it or not. And then obviously from there, if people decide that they want to move forward, we go down that best path together.
Okay, fantastic. No, great explanation. Really appreciate you coming on today, Chrysta. And yeah, if you guys want to book a free consult with Chrysta, you guys can just follow us on social media at Red Wolf CrossFit. Shoot us a DM there, and we could definitely get you hooked up with her. If you are a member of the gym, then just come up and talk to one of us, or find Chrysta. She's always at the gym, so feel free to talk to her, and we'd love to hook you guys up with that and take advantage of it too, because Chrysta has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to nutrition, and as you can see, the results definitely speak for themselves. Thank you so much for listening. If this was helpful, please leave us a 5-star review so we know to make more content just like this. Again, don't forget to follow us on social media at Red Wolf CrossFit and send us your content suggestions there. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, good luck, have fun. Nailed it.